We are so proud of you.
Oh, I'm proud of them because I know what they have done, and they do a lot of tremendously good work and hard work.
But you have been our leader through all of the wonderful Title IX programs that you have really pushed forward in the laws and so on.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people to do it, and you pass a law and it's great, but there've got to be people who then push to get that law enforced, and that's what those women are doing and have been doing for years. And without them, Title IX is not as good as it would be, as it could be.
How do you feel looking back on the struggle?
When Title IX was passed, we did not know how important it was. We knew about discrimination in admissions, in graduate schools. We really didn't know much about vocational guidance in high schools, but we really had no idea of the extent of discrimination. In 1970, when the hearings are held, and in 1972, Title IX is passed, there's not even the word sexism. There's no word for sexual harassment. There's no word for acquaintance rape, all of which are covered in educational institutions. And so we saw the scope of Title IX as somewhat smaller than it ended up being. Athletics was not an oversight. We knew it was going to cover athletics. And my idea of how it would cover athletics was, many people know what play day is or field day. They cancel classes and have relay races and activities. And my idea, I remember saying to someone, so on play day, you know what this means? There's going to be more activities for girls. We had no idea of the impact because no one had ever done a study on what the data was, what it would look like. And where I used to work at the Association of American Colleges and Universities, we did the first report on sex discrimination in collegiate athletics in 1973. This was right after Title IX is passed. We could find no data at all. All we had was a huge list of horrible anecdotes.
From Jill and Linda Shevitz and the women at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, we thank you so much, and please keep up the great work.
Oh, well, that's what I would say to them, because they're doing the hard work, which is in the field. They need to continue, and I know that they will.
Well, thank you so much. We're grateful.
Thank you.
So, first of all, congratulations. It's a huge honor.
Thank you very much.
What we would like to hear from you is, how is this going to, and has already impacted future generations? Why is this important for daughters and granddaughters and the legacy? Can you talk about the legacy of it?
Yeah, Title IX is going to keep working for us, we hope, for a very long time, because it takes a long time for certain kinds of changes. Title IX has gotten rid of a lot, not all, but a lot of the official policies and practices that were all over higher education and K through 12. I think what the big impact of that, for me this was totally unanticipated, is that I have 3 grandchildren, and a reporter recently asked me how Title IX affected my grandchildren. And I wanted to say that my granddaughter was a wonderful athlete and had an athletic scholarship, and of course I couldn't say that because Jessica was the kind of child who, when she played on a soccer team for 3 games, asked if she could quit because she said, I don't care what happens to a ball. So she does other things, but I think what all 3 grandchildren, 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter have, is friends of the other gender with whom they are not romantically engaged. And I think that is a legacy that reads well, because it says that men and women and boys and girls are going to have better relationships, not based on sex, not based on power, but on equality. And we see this even in kindergarten sometimes and all the way through. When I was a child, this would have been virtually impossible. And in fact, I can remember having discussions with friends do you think a man and woman can ever be friends without sex getting in the way? And that's not a question anymore that people ask us. We know that men and women can be friends. And I think that's the unanticipated and true legacy of Title IX, is change the relationships between boys and girls and men and women.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll also be in my acceptance speech. You heard it in advance.
We got a little preview.
Pretend it's the first time you've heard it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Linda Shevitz, Jill Moss Greenberg, and all of the people from the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. This is SAG for you. And great appreciation for all your tremendous work. They did. Well, no,
and I know that.
I mean, they're just so thrilled. They're so sorry they can't be here today.
I will look at this later.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
And I will, that's for you too.
From all of us.
But
all of us.
Oh, you put thank you for
You're from the Maryland.
in commemoration and appreciation for the National Women's Hall of Fame. We'd like to present you with this award of appreciation for women of the National Women's Hall of Fame and for all women, United States women, for doing what you've done for Title IX. So I'll give this to you.
First, I want to tell you, when they said I came on too strong for a woman, this was 40 years ago. I was much more demure and smiling and sweet and lovely, but I was so too strong for a woman. I also want to say that what I didn't mention before, simply because I forgot, that you don't do anything like this alone. That there were hundreds of women on campuses at the beginning who risked their jobs to find information about discrimination and send it to me so we could file charges against their institution. Some of them did lose their jobs. Some of them never got tenure. Some of them never got a raise. Some of them even went on welfare. So it was not an easy struggle. A lot of people worked on it. I've been very visible, but they were invisible. And I just want to honor those women tonight because the award is not only for me, but for them as well. I also had such a good time doing a lot of this, even though it was often frustrating. But I worked with people like Senator Birch-Fine and Representative Patsy Meek, and boy, did they teach me a lot. They had no idea how naive and inexperienced I was at the time. I would also say that I was so naive that I thought in 1 year we would solve everything after Title IX. People would simply say, you were discriminating, and they would say, oh, I'm so sorry. I won't do that anymore. And then I raised my estimate to 2 years, and then to 5 years, and finally have realized that we are part of a very, very long movement and revolution in social history, because we are really changing the very basis of human relations. And that does take a bit longer than ending discrimination. Thank you all very, very much.
For young girls. Never imagining that, in a way, sport really provided the spotlight. It was the most controversial, but behind the scenes, in such an incredible, important way, was the opening door of educational opportunity at every level. So take us back and take us forward.
I want to tell you first that Title IX is most likely to be the most important law passed, most important legislation passed for women and girls in this century, the last century too, since we got the right to vote back in 1920. For me, Title IX starts back in 1969. I just finished my doctorate at the University of Maryland, where I have been teaching. There were 7 new openings. And when I was not considered for any of them, I went to a friend on the faculty and I said, how come I wasn't considered? And without skipping a beat, he said, well, let's face it, you come on too strong for a woman. I went home and I cried. I never should have spoken up in graduate school. I never should have said anything. I should have been more silent. And my then husband was much better on this issue than I was at the time. And he said, are there strong men in the department? And I said, yes, they're all strong men. And he said, then it's not you, it's sex discrimination. And that was kind of a new word for me, because the words in 1969, sex discrimination, were very new. And most women were simply not aware of how sex discrimination had restricted and shaped their lives. And there were no words yet, like sexist or sexism or sexual harassment or date rapes. I was stunned to discover that all of the laws that dealt with discrimination at that time, none prohibited sex discrimination against women and girls in education, whether they were teachers, faculty, staff, administrators, or students. So I began to read up on how African Americans had changed the laws of our country. I read about a presidential executive order. I didn't even know what that was. It prohibited federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, and national origin, and had recently been amended to cover sex discrimination. I quickly became head of the Federal Contract Compliance Committee of the Women's Equity Action League, WEO. In fact, I was the entire committee. A long story short, with very extensive but secret help from the other godfather of Title IX, unknown, he was the Assistant Director of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, Vincent Macaluso, and in the next few months he gave me all kinds of advice, and I filed administrative charges of sex discrimination with his office against about 250 colleges and universities, and then other women's groups and organizations began filing charges also. Meanwhile, back in the House of Representatives, Representative Edith Green, a Democrat from Portland, Oregon, had been wanting to amend the laws that prohibited discrimination. My charges against universities and colleges and those that others made provided her with the constituency and the data that she needed so that she could finally introduce what eventually became Title IX. She held hearings in June 1970, and later Senator Birch Barr led the troops in the Senate, and the rest is history. It was a stealth law, since hardly anyone, including those of us working on the bill, had any idea of how extensive sex discrimination was in education. The lobbyist for the American Council on Education, which is the big organization, was asked if he wanted to testify at the hearings, and he said, no, there is no sex discrimination in higher education, and besides, it's not a problem. Had he testified, he would have analyzed the bill as we did, and he would have discovered that it would cover athletics, and it would cover higher ed and admissions and scholarships, and lots of other things. The opposition of Title IX really emerges after its passage when people notice that it's going to cover athletics. So let me tell you what education looked like in those days. It was socially acceptable to discriminate against women and girls, and hardly anybody thought that it was wrong. I want to tell you that in one period in the 1960s, for example, there were 21,000 women applicants. In the state of Virginia, in one period during the 1960s, there were 21,000 women applicants who were rejected for admission to Virginia state colleges and universities. Would you like to guess how many men applicants were rejected? You got it. 0. Not one single man was rejected. And I often wondered what happened to those 25,000 women who probably did not go to college. My application to college, like that of many colleges, stated that women needed higher grades and higher test scores for admission. The percentage of women faculty in 1969 was lower than the percentage of faculty in 1929. One woman who sent me her rejection letter for a faculty position, and it said, your qualifications are excellent, but we already have a woman in this department. And that was not uncommon. One woman, an assistant professor, I have to tell you, salary discrimination was rampant, and one woman who was an assistant professor who had received no promotions, no raises, because her husband taught in the department, she did not even have an office until she was awarded the Nobel Prize. Women were paid less because they were married, and also paid less because they were not married, because they didn't need as much money either. There were so few women college presidents that if it were not for the Catholic sisters who ran their own institutions, the number of women college presidents would have been less than the number of whooping cranes at that time. I'm happy to tell you that both are doing better now. Some examples from sports. University of Michigan had a $1 million budget for men's varsity sports, but zero funding for women's varsity sports. So the women athletes had to sell apples on Saturday football games in order to pay part of the cost for their uniforms, their equipment, and for travel. There were virtually no women's athletic scholarships except at a few historically black colleges. At the University of Minnesota, for example, there was no budget for women gymnasts to pay for athletic tape to wrap their wrists, and so the men gymnasts were really very nice, would give their used, sweaty, grungy tape to the women athletes, and they would have to wash it out. In another institution, when one athletic director refused to give ice to a female athlete with a sprained ankle, he simply told her, put your foot in the toilet and keep flushing it. And this is an example of the kind of equality we didn't have in colleges and in universities. In K-K, discrimination was also rampant. If a science class was overcrowded, some of the girls would be forced to drop the class. Girls were openly, vigorously discouraged from having any vocational ambitions other than occupations such as teacher, librarian, secretary, and nurse. Boys would have career days, while at the same time girls had a fashion show. My own daughter wanted to take a course in auto mechanics and couldn't because the boys used bad language. They apparently had not talked with any teenage girls at the time. We are not finished yet. There is still much discrimination in education. Almost all high schools are non-compliant in terms of athletics and other issues as well. There's much to do because Title IX is more than any discrimination. It is part of a social revolution. A revolution we didn't know we were engaging in when we started. A revolution which will have as much impact as the Industrial Revolution because it is changing the social relationships between men and women, boys and girls into more equity. And I think this is one of the biggest achievements of Title IX. It was totally unexpected for many of us, for we are helping young men and young women not only respect each other, but also to be friends. I think of my two grandsons, both in college, and one granddaughter about to enter college. All three have had, and still have, genuine friendships with people of the other gender. Relationships which are not sexual or romantic, but based on friendship. That would have been nearly impossible when I was a child for many students to do so. It was just something that was remarkably new, and I think it's one of the direct results of Title IX. We have taken only the very first steps of what is going to be a very long journey. And our schools, our campuses, our nation, and the world will never again be the same. Thank you.